To say that the ego sense has arisen in the self is like saying that space, distance, has been brought into being in space. So it's like saying that space has been brought into being in space. And the translator has suggested that the first space is distance. And this is what we do, isn't it? There's space, we carve it up, we measure things. We have our meters and centimeters, feet and inches, and we bring in notions of distance. Distance is a mind-created concept, and I think that's quite obvious to see. Measurements of distance are mind-created. And this is what we do with our awareness. We chop it up into the things that it's aware of. And this is the ego sense. But it's only ideas, it's only notions. And these notions, we should say, are driven by very powerful tendencies. The ego sense is but a delusion and unreal. In space there is only spatiality. Even so, consciousness alone exists in consciousness. That which is called the ego sense, I am neither that nor not that. This consciousness exists like a mountain within every atom because it is extremely subtle. This is a great simile because it gives a sense of the bigness of consciousness once we can become more established in it. It's our sense of being. And it's from this understanding that the first paragraph perhaps makes more sense when we're told that he in whom the contact of sharp weapons and the contact of a naked woman produce the same experience. It's the same magnitude of experience. It's like a flea bite, or even less than that. They're both like flea bites. This extremely subtle consciousness entertains notions of I and this, and these notions appear to exist as the respective substances. There's a huge tendency for there to be other, for there to be another or the other. A young child doesn't have a sense of other, doesn't really have a sense of self, although it might seem very self-centered. It's something that's learnt. Even as a whirlpool, etc. I think etc. can refer to waves and other shapes of water. About notional forms of water, the ego sense and space, etc. are notions that arise in consciousness. No matter what the water does, whether it's a tidal wave, whether it's ice, whether it's whirlpools, whether it's waves and ripples, whether it's riptides, it's all water. I suppose you could say within the water there are forces, there are tendencies which create these shapes in the water. But the reality is the water. The cessation of such notions is known as cosmic dissolution. And there we have it. Whenever we hear talk of cosmic dissolution, what this refers to is no longer identifying with notions, no longer caught up in the powerful tendencies that make us assume the reality of our notions. Thus all these worlds, etc., come into being and cease to be as notions and nothing more. Consciousness does not undergo any change in all these. After the tidal waves passed, the water's not damaged. After the ice melts, the water's not damaged. After the whirlpool stops, the water's not damaged. It's not even damaged when it's in these forms. And this is consciousness. In consciousness there is no experience of pleasure or pain, nor does a notion arise in it as this I am. Consciousness does not entertain qualities like courage, pleasure, prosperity, fear, memory, fame, or resplendence. They are not perceived in the self any more than the feet of a snake are perceived in darkness. So all these qualities, courage, pleasure, prosperity, etc., They're qualities that we attribute to the individual. And they're qualities which guide our lives, which we base our lives on. But fundamentally, there are no such things. They're perceived in the self no more than the feet of a snake are perceived in darkness. So we've got a double blindness here. It's dark, and the feet of the snake don't exist anyway. The feet of the snake are the notions we've got as we wander around in the darkness.